How's it going, guys, and welcome to Four-Mile Ranch. Today I'm going to be talking to you about infrared illuminators, or IR illuminators for short. What I have in front of me are the Sniper Hog Lights Coyote Cannon, or their 66 LRX. Now, this is probably in your subconscious somehow. If you follow any kind of hunting pages, shooting pages in general that feature hunting content, it probably looks kind of familiar to you because these are really taking up popularity, and I'm seeing them all over my feed now because of how well they perform. So to my knowledge, these are the absolute brightest you can get on the market. So bright that the Coyote Cannon has an advertised 1,000+ yards of range through a modern digital optic, and the 66 LRX is going to give you roughly an 800-yard range through a modern digital night vision optic. So let's go ahead and get the disclosures out of the way. I did not purchase either of these. These were both sent to me from Sniper Hog Lights to support some night vision reviews I was doing on the channel. So although they did not send them directly to me to give them a review, they were happy to help me with the best infrared light that they could provide in support of reviewing things like these, which are my current collection of digital night vision optics. So they're not expecting anything. I did say I would, share the performance of these in a separate video for them. No money was exchanged. I do believe I get to hang on to these bad boys, which will help show you some future content on the channel. But want to get that out of the way for transparency purposes. So maybe you think I'm biased, maybe you don't, but whatever you want to decide for yourself, there are the facts. That being said, these are absolutely the brightest IR illuminators I have ever personally used, and I was very impressed by both of these. So starting with the 66 LRX, this is an 18650 powered IR illuminator. Now, again, they advertise a range of 800 yards. I'm gonna get into that here in a little bit, but giving you some basic specs, this comes in at 14 ounces. In terms of the length, it's gonna be 7 to 7.5 inches, depending on if you have it extended or retracted, because the beam is focusable for depending on if you want more of a flood or a spotlight. Now, switching over to the Coyote Cannon, this big boy comes in at 34 ounces, which does include the mount and the big internal 21700 battery. And the length on this is gonna range anywhere from 9.5 to 10 inches. Again, with the same logic, depending on if you want it to be focused or a more flood in terms of the throw on the light. So biggest difference, you got bigger and more range versus a little bit more compact, slightly less range. But price difference wise, these start around $175, and the price varies because Sniper Hog Lights offers a variety of different combination packages on their website, depending on what accessories, extra batteries, chargers, things of that nature. Whereas the Coyote Cannon is going to start around $275. So it is another $100 more for an extra 200 yards. But again, depending on what you want out of your IR illuminators is really going to come down to you. So some people are happy to pay that money for 1,000+ yards of range. Runtime wise, the 66 LRX is going to give you about 2 hours on full blast out of that 18650, whereas the Coyote Cannon is going to give you an advertised 2.5 hours on full brightness with that larger 21700 battery. So that's pretty impressive. Obviously, if you dial it down from full power, which I have a feeling you'll need to do depending on the range you're hunting at, because they are very capable of overpowering your digital night vision optic at closer ranges when they're on full blast. You'll get a lot more than those advertised run times, which is good, but the batteries are removable. So you just bring a couple spares, and I mean, if you have a hunt that goes 2.5 or 2 hours, depending on the model, at full power, then you need to slide into the DMs on YouTube and invite me, because that sounds like a lot of fun. My hunts have not lasted that long where I needed a full power IR beam. So let's go ahead and talk about the optics I'm going to use and just the basics of IR illumination. And then if you don't want to hear that, skip ahead. I do have some sample footage that we're going to get into. But in short, what is IR illumination? Well, digital night vision optics do gather actual ambient light, which is similar to analog night vision, but I'm not going to get into any more details other than that. However, with the digital night vision devices, they can also gather, IR light. So what you are able to see as you're seeing me now through your TV, phone, whatever computer screen, it's visible light. We're very familiar with this, but there's also IR light that's bouncing all around from different devices and things all the time. You just can't see it. So obviously, if you took an actual visible light flashlight, which you're very familiar with, I would assume, and you paired it with a night vision device, yes, you would be able to see better and further through that night vision device, but it's going to come at the obvious disadvantage that the wildlife is also going to see it. They're likely going to get spooked, run away, hunt over. What IR illuminators essentially are through these devices, are an invisible flashlight. So you think of these as super bright, invisible flashlights that will work with these night vision devices, letting you see it as if it was a actual flashlight. So if you're familiar with night vision, I'm not trying to insult your intelligence, but there's people out here for the first time watching these videos contemplating digital night vision, and they may not understand that. So that is about as basic as I'm gonna get, because this isn't how does night vision work video. It's about these bad boys right here. So again, advertise 800 yards range and advertise 1,000+ yards range. Last caveat I'm gonna give you is that that is with an 850 nanometer LED emitter. So again, if you're new to night vision, you're like, what the heck does that mean? Well, Sniper Hog Lights gives you two options. They give you the 850 nanometer or the 940 nanometer option. And keeping it as simple as possible without overcomplicating it, 850 is going to go further than the 940, but it's also going to glow a little bit more. Now, when I say glow, I don't mean it's going to be shining a visible red light. What I mean is that the LED emitter itself, just a little square chip that's located behind these front lenses, is going to glow red. So if you see it at the absolute dead-on angle, this little lens right here is basically going to be a glowing red circle from that little bit of glow bouncing around in there. It's not really projecting. You can't really see it unless it's shining directly at you, but some people theorize that wildlife that may be more sensitive or in an area that has a lot of nighttime hunting pressure may pick up on that, and the hunt's over, potentially. Whereas the 940, less range, but it's gonna also have less glow, which kind of makes sense, right? So again, don't overcomplicate it. Just know that you do have an option, which is awesome. I do want to say though that I've always used 850 nanometers for all my IR emitters over the years, and I've yet to have an animal pick up on that and run away. You are much more likely spooking them off with your scent than ever spooking them off with the IR emitter. So that being said, baseline, both of these are going to use 850 nanometer emitters for this video. Okay, so now I'm gonna go ahead and roll into the sample footage, but I wanna explain the optics that I used for testing. So first and foremost, I have the ATN X-Sight 4K Pro, which Sniper Hog Lights specifically mentions in their spec sheet as far as what you can expect out of performance. They're kind of naming this as an example for a modern digital night vision optic. Very similar playing field to the ATN 4K Pro in terms of nighttime performance and light sensitivity is gonna be the Accufire Noctis TR1. For the sample footage I'm going to show in this video, I actually ended up using the ATN X-Sight 4K Pro only because my personal editing setup seems to not really like the footage that comes out of the Accufire TR1. So it gets a little bit overly compressed and it kind of ruins the footage, and it's not representative of what I'm actually seeing through the optics. So although the TR1 looks awesome to the shooter's eye, I'm not able to share that with you, so I did have to lean on the 4K Pro to get some sample footage. Now the other ATN optic that I use for this video is the X-Sight LTV, because it is probably the most light sensitive digital optic that I currently have in my possession. Okay, so starting out with the 66 LRX paired with the ATN 4K Pro at 400 yards, you can see the tree line. I was getting a lot of reflection back initially from the foreground. You can see there where I'm kind of struggling for the optic to pick up on the tree. So bear with me, this clip wasn't the best, but you get an idea of what you can see at that 400-yard tree line. Now switching over to the Coyote Cannon next, that IR is punching through a lot better. The trees are more illuminated. The optic in general had less difficulty focusing on that rear tree line. So incredibly clear view through the 4K Pro. Now keep in mind, guys, that when you're looking at any of these demo clips through the actual optic, it looks honestly 5 times better to the shooter's eye. There's a little bit of compression that happens also when you blow up this image compared to the tiny little screen in the optic. It's going to look so much more sharp and clear to your eye through the optic. So don't think that these optics look this fuzzy when you're looking through them. It looks significantly better. But again, I think this kind of conveys the point that even at 400 yards, you can see things just fine through the 4K Pro with either of these IR optics. Now I shifted a little bit more to the right, just wanted to see how much that IR illumination is going to penetrate at 600 yards compared to that 400-yard tree line, and I'm still able to make out the fence line and the trees just fine. Now pushing the limits on the 66 LRX, I now am looking at a tractor shed that is at 900 yards away. Now keep in mind, guys, that I am in South Texas. There's a lot of dust in the air, so IR is going to be limited by the ambient conditions. So I was very, very impressed. This is the best thus far I've ever seen my 4K Pro do at night, even with the 66 LRX. Now switching to the Coyote cannon, I begin to notice that there is livestock in the area because I have a little bit stronger throw now. So that is a cow that's a little left of that tractor shed, still at roughly that 900-yard range, and I'm able to make it out just fine. Now, would I be able to positively identify at 900 yards? Well, no, probably not. I'm gonna move in a little bit closer, but the fact that I'm picking up things at 900 yards at night is absolutely insane to me. So definitely getting the most I've ever gotten out of this optic thus far with these IR illuminators. And I was pretty happy and pretty pleased. Taking a quick side-by-side comparison look, I do want to point out that there's more noise in the 66 LRX compared to the Coyote cannon, and that just goes to show a more scientific way, I guess, that the sensor in the ATN 4K Pro is struggling more with the 66 LRX, so the Coyote cannon does in fact have more output at this range. So just keep that in mind, guys. Other than that, the Coyote cannon also illuminates more of the area where the 66 LRX seems to have a tighter pattern. Okay, now switching over to the ATN LTV. Again, this is the most light sensitive night vision optic I have in my arsenal at the moment. I do want to point out that all the washout you're seeing is because I chose to leave the illuminators on full power so that we'd have an even comparison. I did not want to try to mess with toggling down that power a little bit. Again, wanted to keep it even. So yes, you could dial it down so you're not seeing as much washout, but this just goes to show how strong it is, especially when switching over to the Coyote cannon. I mean, it literally lights up that field at 450 yards away like I'm using this night vision optic during the broad daylight. Absolutely insane output out of these guys. Stretching its legs out again at 900 yards, we're looking at that same tractor shed. I'm still seeing a little bit of washout. It's as if even at this range with a sensitive night vision optic, the 66 LRX is still overpowering it, which is just crazy to me. But again, wanted to keep it on full power for a fair comparison. This is quite a strong IR illuminator. Again, getting a tight beam at that 900-yard range. Now switching to the Coyote cannon, obviously getting a little bit more overpowering and a much wider beam. It really lights up the entire area, so you get a lot more view in your peripheral vision rather than just in that tight focused spotlight. Very, very impressive. Again, we're able to illuminate everything over there, all those cows, the tractor shed, trees even behind the tractor shed at 900 yards, just fine. So a very, very powerful combination with a light sensitive night vision device. So again, comparison, you do see a little bit more noise in the 66 LRX because the sensor is struggling a little bit more, especially outside that spotlight there, where the Coyote cannon is providing more of that IR output. So which one's right for you? I'm not sure. Personally, I'm gonna still opt for the Coyote cannon just to get the absolute most I possibly can. Again, in exchange for a little bit larger IR illuminator and a little bit more weight on your setup. But anyways, guys, like I said, keep in mind, these are gonna look so much better to your eye when you're looking through these kind of optics, and you do lose some of that quality of the footage when you download it, and then again, especially when it's uploaded to YouTube. But this hopefully gives you a fair comparison. Again, I chose to leave these illuminators on full power so you would not have to deal with this kind of overpowering and washout when you're actually using it. You can dial it down for the situation you need, and again, that's gonna extend your battery life by quite a bit. Okay guys, so hopefully you benefited from watching this video. Again, I think it's absolutely insane that you can get 1,000+ yards out of a infrared illuminator. Again, so just to put it into one last piece of context, even though this starts at $275, you can pick up, a fairly light sensitive night vision optic like this X-Sight LTV for probably ballpark $800 these days. So just over $1,000 for over 1,000 yards of range at night. That's pretty crazy because not too long ago you would have had to spend a lot more money to get that. So technology is advancing at the benefit of the consumer like you and I. It's making hunting easier, it's making hunting more enjoyable, and it's honestly just impressive. So hopefully you learned a thing or two in this video. If you have any further questions, leave them in the comments below. I try to answer any questions that I'm truly knowledgeable about. If not, I'll BS you a pretty good answer that sounds right. Other than that, I really appreciate you watching this video. Please support Sniper Hog Lights. check them out. I will have links to these in the description below. I don't get any kickback, but like I said, they did provide these in support of other reviews. They're a solid product. I don't, preach anything that I wouldn't want to buy for myself. If I was on the IR market, if they hadn't sent these to me, I probably would be picking these up in the near future myself as well, just to get the most out of my night vision devices. So with that said, guys, I really appreciate you taking the time to watch this video. And as always, have a good one.